He thought she was just an alien girl until she unzipped her jumpsuit right there in the dim corridor of the supply deck and revealed the truth. He'd not expected she pulled the zipper slow and calm and folded the collar aside, not to tempt or tease, but to show a hidden panel of living light set in her chest like a gentle lake of stars the guard had seen. Many strange tools in this quiet outpost at the rim, yet he had never seen a bio-key like that. The panel glowed soft and then dim, and then soft again like a heartbeat, and a small lattice of line shimmered across her skin. She looked steady and brave, and the fear in her eyes was not for herself, but for the station and for the people on it. Her name was Claire, and she spoke. In even words and simple tone, she said the station was in danger, and there was a fault inside the reactor shield that no one else could see. She said a shadow group had placed a slow fuse in the coolant channels, and the fuse would wake when the next cargo ship docked. She said she could read the pattern because she was born with sight for the old signals, and the old signals lived in the panel in her chest. She said she came to help because a human voice on a long-range band had asked for aid, and she answered. The guard listened and watched the soft light on her skin, and he believed he led Claire through a service hatch and down a ladder into a narrow shaft that smelled like iron and dust. They moved quiet and careful above them. The public decks hummed with the soft life of the station, and music drifted from a cafe where a singer named Megan told a slow story to a small crowd. It made the danger feel far away, but Claire did not relax. Her fingers brushed each rung, as if each rung had a secret, and sometimes her panel flashed, and she paused to listen with her hands to the metal on the third level. They found the first sign of faint residue on a valve wheel in a place no one touched in years. Claire held her palm near it, and the panel brightened. She said the fuse was real and close, and the pattern matched the one she knew from a raid on her home moon. The guard asked how she had seen that raid, and she said she was a child then, but not small now, and not weak now, and she had chosen to learn. The guard nodded and thought of the people on the station. He thought of Lily, who ran the nursery on Deck 6, and of Nora, who repaired suit joints in the bay, and of Zoe, who folded dumplings for workers on long shifts. He thought he must keep them safe, he told Claire. He would help, and she gave a short smile that looked like dawn behind a hill. They moved through the old coolant ring steam, curled in thin threads from a cracked seam Claire touched her panel, and a thin beam of pale light traced the seam and read it. She said the crack was a message, not a weak point by chance, but a line carved by a careful hand. The beam drew symbols that looked like rain on glass. Claire read them out. She said it was a countdown. She said they had less than one orbit of the small moon outside to stop the fuse. They reached a service bay and found a toolbox left open. Inside lay an old cutter and a strip of dark putty that drank the light. Claire told the guard the putty was the fuse. It was sleeping now, and it would wake when a docking clamp sparked at the wrong moment. The guard felt a chill. He looked to the camera lens in the corner and watched Claire close the toolbox and wrapped it in a blanket and held it to her chest so the panel could touch it. The panel pulsed, and the fuse went dull and heavy. She said the fuse fed on signal, and she was starving it. With a quiet field, they climbed deeper to find the anchor points of the fuse. In a long corridor, they met Lauren, who handled night shift records. Lauren had keen eyes and a calm voice. She said she saw a tech she did not know near the coolant ring an hour ago. She said the tech wore an orange patch, but the patch color did not match his badge. She handed them a small slate with logs and pointed to a path on the map. Claire thanked Lauren in a soft voice, and the three moved together. Lauren did not fear. She said she trusted Claire because the panel light looked honest, like a lighthouse seen through rain. They reached a blind turn, and the floor trembled. A bulkhead door locked with a hard clank. A shadow stepped out at the far end and tossed a small piece of metal that clicked and rolled and stopped at their feet. Claire bent and looked at it. It was a simple bolt. The shadow wanted to play games. The guard spoke low and steady and kept Lauren close behind. Claire raised her hand, and the panel cast a thin sheet of light down the corridor. It showed dust prints and a smear where a glove had dragged. She said the saboteur was not far, and he was moving to the junction where 4 lines met. They hurried in the junction room. The air tasted like cold copper pipes crossed overhead like the ribs of a whale from a catwalk. Above, a voice called out in a bright tone that tried to sound friendly. The voice said the station sold what it had to sell, and today It would sell a burst of heat to the highest bidder, the voice said. The bidders loved. Chaos and fear and closed borders, Claire did not answer with words. She lifted the toolbox and held it to her panel. The dull fuse began to hum, and then went still. She turned and set it behind a shield plate and told Lauren to stand back the saboteur. Dropped a small device from the catwalk. Claire reached and caught it before it hit the floor. Her panel flickered, as if the device tried to drink. Its light, she held it firm, and the light became steady. The guard climbed the ladder toward the catwalk. His hands burned on the rungs, but he did not stop. The saboteur ran. Claire called out that the man would go to the outer hatch, where a small craft waited. Lauren radioed a warning to Megan at the cafe, and to Lily at the nursery, and to Nora at the suit bay, and told them to lock their doors and keep people calm. Megan began to sing a braver song. It floated through the ducts. Like a warm wind on the outer ring, the stars hung close and clear. The saboteur sprinted along a narrow bridge over the open void. The guard followed with steady feet and steady breath. Claire reached the ring at a different point and moved to cut him off. She did not leap or fight wild. She moved like water in a small canyon. The saboteur grabbed a control box and yanked a lever. Red lamps woke along the ring. Clamor filled the air. He laughed and said they were too late. Claire touched her panel, and the laugh faded. When the lamps dimmed to a soft glow, she said, "The lever only armed the show and the real." Trigger was in a place he had not reached and would not reach. Still he ran for the hatch. The guard met him at the door and held it with both hands. The saboteur swung a wrench the guard took. The blow on his forearm and did not fall. Lauren reached them with a restraint band and snapped it like a ribbon of ice around the man. Claire stepped close and pressed her panel to the control plate. Locks clicked open. Behind the hatch lay not a craft but a cache of parts and slugs of hard currency. The man had planned to flee on a different dock, and to leave a false trail here. They brought him to a tools room and sat him on a crate. Claire stood before him with her hands open and her voice low. She spoke of the old signals and how they were meant to heal and warn. She spoke of the field in her chest that could feed or starve a pattern. She said she would not hurt him. She only wished to know who paid him. He looked away and said nothing, but his silence was a name. It was a name that lived in the way he glanced at the ceiling camera and then at the floor. Claire followed the glance. The camera had a tiny scar under the lens. She touched the scar, and her panel flashed and found a worm in the feed. Someone on the board had helped. The saboteur hid in plain sight. Lauren took the logs to the command deck, the boardroom. Lights were bright, but the air felt cold. Nora stood behind Lauren as a friend, and witness Megan played soft music on a small speaker to ease the room. Lily sent a note from the nursery that the children were safe and that hope was the best rail on a long road. Claire stood with the guard at the back of the room. She did not cover the panel now. Its light filled the space with a steady calm. She told the board what she had seen and done. She told them of the fuse and the crack and the countdown and the man and the worm and the camera. She told them the station could be safe if they chose it. Some faces softened. Some stayed hard. One member looked down at a pocket slate a moment too long. The guard saw it and moved to stand where the slate had no signal. Claire lifted her palm and her panel made a quiet field that washed the room like tide over sand. Hidden pings lost their teeth. The slate went dark. The member sighed and set the slate on the table and spoke in a small voice about debt and deals and a promise of power that had sounded sweet at first and sour now. No one shouted, no one cursed. They listened as if a storm was outside, and they wanted to hear the last patter of rain. The station made a choice. They turned the saboteur over to a circuit court that still believed in truth more than noise. They accepted Claire as a guest engineer for one season of The Small Moon. They opened the ducts and let the warm songs play in the walkways at shift change. They asked Megan to write a new song for the station. They asked Nora to lead a team to scrub the old ring. They asked Lily to bring the nursery to visit the plant. Rose so small hands could learn how air is made. Lauren took the night shift logs and found 4 more weak seams, and they fixed them all before dawn. In the quiet after the long day, the guard met Claire by a view. Port stars sat like seeds in dark soil. Claire rested her hand over the panel and let the zipper fall back into place. She said the field would not be needed for a while. Claire smiled, and the smile held a small tremble like the first breath after